I am Maggie. I'm a company employee and I'm 29 years old. I just got married to my husband, William, this year. After dating for more than 2 years, we started our married life in the apartment where I had been living since my single days. This apartment was a gift from my father when I got my job. At home, my brother and his wife decided to live with our parents. So I decided to move out and take a new step in my life when I got a job. My father, who was not short on money, bought me an apartment near our family home. I don't know if he wanted to help me if I ever needed it or if he wanted to keep me close. But in any case, I was able to live in a wonderful apartment. My husband used to live in a small apartment, but it was too small for both of us. My apartment was spacious and rent-free. So as soon as we decided to get married, he immediately moved in. The first time I visited my husband's family home in a snow-heavy region was during winter. I was astounded by the sheer amount of snow and coldness. Having grown up in the city, my husband's family home was an entirely new world to me. At my husband's family home, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law lived in an old-fashioned house that seemed like something out of a fairy tale. In the past, when my father-in-law was alive, they used to live as part-time farmers. There were only fields around their house, and the neighbors' houses were a bit far away. What surprised me even more was that the toilet and bath were located outside the house. I thought I could tolerate it if I visited once in a while, but I felt that living there for a long time would be inconvenient and challenging. Especially in winter, when it's snowing and freezing. It takes courage to go to the toilet in the middle of the night. Also, after taking a shower, I felt I might catch a cold from the dropping temperatures. When I went to greet them for our marriage, I didn't stay overnight. So I didn't know the hassle of the shower, but the toilet was honestly tough. However, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law were very kind, and I felt relieved. Although we won't live together, we are becoming one family. And I wanted to build a harmonious relationship with them. However, something bothered me. My mother-in-law always greeted me with a smile, but when she was alone in a room with my husband, she seemed to be murmuring complaints or something. What concerned me even more was that my brother-in-law had been married before, but had divorced after about a year, and my husband would not tell me the details. There might be various issues in a marital relationship. But since my husband didn't talk about his brother's divorce, I couldn't ask him persistently. At our wedding, my mother-in-law had a beaming smile, so my father told me, "Isn't that great? Your mother-in-law seems very kind." I smiled back at my father, but my mother had a slightly different opinion. But even though she smiles in front of others, she looked rather grumpy when she thought no one was looking. Be careful, she might be two-faced. My mother advised me, but I believed there wouldn't be any issues unless we lived together. Indeed, we started our married life in the apartment happily, without any worries. However, 3 months after we got married, my husband began to push all household chores onto me and made decisions unilaterally. We both worked, and we had promised to share household duties, but he began to slack off. At first, he helped with cleaning the bathroom, and when I came home late, he would prepare dinner. But lately, he became reluctant even to clean, and preparing dinner became my responsibility. If I come home late and start cooking, he sometimes shouts in irritation, "Hurry up and make it. I'm hungry from working." I too come home tired and hungry from work and often find myself preparing dinner while irritated. But more than that, I was upset that he decided everything on his own. There might have been signs before we got married, but maybe I misunderstood and thought he was a decisive and reliable man. Not long after we got married, furniture and a sofa suddenly arrived at our place. I was shocked and asked my husband, "What's this about? Where do you plan to put this sofa and furniture?" My husband replied with a smile, "I don't feel the current vibe of this room suits me. So, I thought of replacing the furniture with ones that match my taste. He wanted to dispose of all the furniture I chose and change the ambience of the room with furniture that matched his own preference. If he had consulted with me, we could have gone together to select the furniture. But my husband acts on his own accord, disregarding my preferences completely. It's okay for him to style his own room however he wants. But I disliked him unilaterally changing the shared living space. His sense of design lacked coherence, and I was left speechless by his choice of mismatched furniture colors and shapes. Then, an unexpected proposal came up. Would be nice if you could pay for it. After all, this was originally your apartment, wasn't it? Frankly, I was already frustrated that he had taken over the living room with his tasteless furniture. But now he was asking me to pay for it. I wondered if he was joking and asked him again. What? Why should I pay for it? Moreover, it's the furniture you bought on your own. Normally, I don't talk back, but this time I responded strongly. My husband seemed lost for words, but he apparently didn't want to spend his own money. This year was our first Christmas since getting married, so we decided to spend the Christmas holidays at his parents' home. It was my first stay at my in-laws' house, so I was anxious and nervous. At that moment, my mother-in-law spoke with a kind smile. Maggie, you can relax here. However, I couldn't just sit idly. Heeding my mother's advice, I remained cautious as there might be a hidden side to my mother-in-law. When I first came here, my mother-in-law did nothing but rest. In the past, brides had to eat alone in the kitchen. It's nice that we can eat together now. Confused by her stories from the past, I noticed my brother-in-law cautioning her. But my husband seemed oblivious. After enduring sarcastic remarks from my mother-in-law, I offered to clean up after dinner. She smiled but said, "I'll do it. I wouldn't want you to break our precious dishes." It made me realize my mother's advice was spot on. The first day was filled with her sarcasm. The next day, however, things took a turn for the worse. That day, my husband went out drinking with friends in the evening. And with my brother-in-law out on a fire brigade trip, it was just my mother-in-law and me. To be honest, I was quite nervous. After dinner and while she was in the shower, I could relax a bit. But when she came out, she said, "I'm going to bed now. Make sure to lock the front door." I awkwardly replied, "Yes," and prepared to take my shower in the separate bathhouse, which was chilly. Local residents might be used to it, but for me, it was tough. After I had settled in, the lights in the main house suddenly went out. While I was relaxing in the bathtub, I thought I heard footsteps outside. So I stayed still and listened carefully. After a while, the lights went out and it became pitch dark. At first, I thought there was a power outage, but when I peeked out the window, the lights in the neighboring house were still on. I began to suspect if my mother-in-law was playing a mean prank on me. I didn't think my mother-in-law would do something so terrible. But since she would make sarcastic remarks with a smile, a feeling of unease arose in my heart, thinking that perhaps it might be possible. I quickly got out of the shower, dried off, and changed into my pajamas. The room was pitch dark initially, and I couldn't see anything. But as my eyes adjusted, the moonlight illuminated the room, allowing me to change. While thinking, what a childish prank to pull. I tried to open the door to go outside, but no matter how hard I pushed, it wouldn't budge. Even body slamming the door didn't help. Panic set in. There was a window, but it was barred from the outside. Fortunately, I had my smartphone with me. I tried to call my husband for help, but he didn't answer. On the third attempt, my husband finally answered the call and suddenly shouted loudly, "Why are you bothering me? Can't you see I'm enjoying myself right now?" It seemed my husband was drunk, but I desperately needed his help, so I pleaded with him. "I can't get out because the bathroom door won't open. Please come here right now." However, it seemed he didn't understand or didn't care as he responded vaguely. It's your fault for taking a shower at this time. I'm drunk and can't come. Goodbye. After he hung up, I tried calling him multiple times, but it appeared he turned off his phone. I considered contacting the police or fire department, but thought that should be a last resort. I hesitated to report to the police because I feared my mother-in-law would be angry. First, I tried to find a way to escape on my own. I thought maybe if I shouted out of the bathroom window, someone passing by might notice. However, the window had frozen shut. My husband had mentioned that the pipes sometimes freeze. If I were to be trapped here all night, I might freeze to death. Just as I was reluctantly about to call the police, I heard a voice from outside. Has the breaker tripped and the lights are out? Hello, is anyone inside? Hearing that voice brought relief. I heard a knocking sound, realizing someone outside was trying to help. And soon enough, the door was opened. I thanked the old man. He sighed and said, "She never learns, does she? Trying to torment her daughter-in-law again." This old man was a neighbor to my husband's family home, a distant relative of my husband's, and he guided me to his house. Seeing me, his wife looked surprised. After the old man explained the situation, she invited me in, looking lost for words. The old lady offered me a blanket since I was only in pajamas, and served warm tea. Once I had calmed down, the old man told me about my mother-in-law's history of tormenting daughters-in-law. Your mother-in-law has a habit of bullying her son's wives. She's locked several in the bathroom before. The wife of the eldest son was locked in the bathroom multiple times and eventually left the house. Not only the wife of the eldest son, but when my husband had a different fiancée before, the mother-in-law locked her in the bathroom as well. The old couple had noticed the bathroom light shining in the darkness and grew suspicious, which is why they came to check. The old couple next door knew that my mother-in-law had trapped others in the bathroom in the past, and it seemed they had come to the rescue on several occasions. They were aware of our marriage and seemed to be concerned that my mother-in-law might pull the same kind of prank again. Since it was already late and the main house was locked, I decided to stay with the neighbors for the night. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of an ambulance siren. As I quickly looked out of the window, I saw an ambulance arriving at my in-laws' house, and my husband was standing still by the detached bathroom. I headed in that direction too. I thought that my husband might have mistakenly believed I was still trapped in the bathroom and called the ambulance. Of course, no one was in the bathroom. I felt sorry for the paramedics who had been called out because of my husband's mistake. When I approached my husband, he began shouting as soon as he saw my face. "Why is my mother lying down there? Weren't you trapped in the bathroom?" Shocked by those words, I peeked into the bathroom and sure enough, I could see a figure lying down with arms and legs outstretched. The woman being spoken to by the paramedics sat up, touching the back of her head. It seemed her life wasn't in danger, and from her figure, I recognized that it was my mother-in-law. I didn't understand why she was there, but one of the paramedics explained. She appears to have hit her head and lost consciousness. We'll take her to the hospital for a checkup. It seems she slipped on the soap that was on the floor and hit her head. In my panic when the lights went out, I might have scattered things like soap on the floor. I couldn't clean it up in the dark, and it seems my mother-in-law slipped on that soap. In the early morning, she probably entered the bathroom to check on me and slipped and fell because of the soap. As my mother-in-law was being carried past on a stretcher, she glared at me with a stern expression. When my husband was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, the neighbors approached and spoke to me. "I'm glad nothing happened to you. It's divine punishment for the harassment you faced as a daughter-in-law." I thanked the neighbors again, realizing that if it weren't for the old man, I might have been the one in the ambulance. I quickly changed and informed my brother-in-law that my mother-in-law had been taken to the hospital. He said he was heading to the hospital right away. Alone, I went to the detached bathroom and reflected on the previous night's events. At the bathroom door, there was a stick used to bar the door shut. This was why I couldn't get out. That afternoon, my mother-in-law returned home with my husband and brother-in-law, and she directed her anger at me. Because you left the bathroom without telling me, this happened to me. As I thought of responding, my husband also showed his anger. Exactly. If Maggie had just stayed in the bathroom, my mother wouldn't have suffered like this. However, my brother-in-law angrily countered both my husband and mother-in-law. What are you both thinking? Stop this cruel game of locking my sister-in-law in the bathroom. Later, my brother-in-law reappeared with a travel bag and told my husband and mother-in-law, I'm done taking care of my mother. I'm leaving this house. Do as you please. Unable to bear it any longer, I asked my brother-in-law, I'm also leaving. Could you drop me off at the nearby station? My husband desperately tried to stop me. Who said you can just leave? I responded firmly. Let's get divorced. Did you help me when I begged yesterday? I'll get the divorce papers ready. I got into my brother-in-law's car and he drove me to the nearest station. He apologized repeatedly. I'm truly sorry, Maggie. I never thought you would suffer like this. Those cruel people are now strangers to me. I returned to my apartment, prepared the divorce papers, and packed my husband's belongings. He was shocked to see his belongings packed when he returned. Thinking my mention of divorce was a joke, seeing the divorce papers infuriated him. You want a divorce over something so trivial? You weren't injured, were you? Realizing that words were wasted on him, I quietly handed him the divorce papers. Reluctantly, he signed. My husband left my apartment, but it seems he doesn't have the money to rent another place, or hasn't yet found a place to stay. The truth is, throughout our married life, my husband was reliant on my income, squandering his own salary and even accumulating debt. After being kicked out of the house, my husband initially stayed with a coworker from his company. However, over time, even that coworker grew distant from him. And it seems he lost all the people who were willing to support him. Losing his home, running from debt collectors, and even losing his job. My husband has been put in a dire financial situation. My mother-in-law has also become the subject of rumors in the neighborhood, saying she harassed her daughter-in-law to the point of divorce. She seems to be avoided by others. And I heard from my brother-in-law that she is living a life of solitude, much like my husband. Furthermore, since my brother-in-law also left the house, she has to make ends meet with just her pension, putting her in a financially difficult situation. In the countryside, a car is essential to go anywhere. But with no one at home and being disliked by the neighbors, it seems she can't get any assistance. It appears that my mother-in-law, abandoned by both family and neighbors, is living all alone. As for my husband, he is overwhelmed with his own problems and doesn't have the capacity to help his mother. After the divorce, I disposed of the tacky furniture my husband had chosen. I started a new life with my favorite furniture, hopeful for a better future and seeking new, positive encounters.
Hey, hurry up and clean the house. I won't tolerate a slave like you taking a break, then shouting in anger. Andrew splashed the beer he was holding onto me. Caught off guard by this unexpected act, I was at a loss for words and frozen in shock. My body became sticky with beer, and the distinct smell of it stung my nose. Seeing me stunned, Andrew continued to hurl insults at me. What should I do in this situation? I truly can't understand what Andrew wants from me. Confused and distressed, my mind was in turmoil, and I was at a loss for words. Suddenly, A voice from the computer interrupted the tense atmosphere. The moment Andrew heard that voice, the anger on his face froze and his power vanished. My name is Catherine. I am 33 years old. I work at a company located in a rural area as an office clerk. Every day, I grapple with large amounts of data and documents, making use of a calculator to perform my tasks. Although I believe that using computers would improve work efficiency, I'm still considered a junior at the company, so I don't have a say in the matter. I always tread carefully around my superiors, even being forced to attend their drinking parties. Frankly, such a lifestyle has worn me out mentally. Hey, the figures here are incorrect. Did you make another mistake? Nah, yes, you're right. I apologize. You know, you've been making a lot of mistakes lately. Seriously, don't make such basic errors, okay? Yes, I'm very sorry. Whether it was the accumulated fatigue or something else, I kept making more mistakes at work and my confidence in my abilities was rapidly lowering. Sigh, it's so hard. Why do I keep messing up like this? With the situation persisting, I wondered daily if I should continue this way or search for a new path. One day, as I pondered such thoughts, a new sales representative started visiting our workplace. That man was Andrew, who would later become my husband. From our first meeting, Andrew exuded kindness, and he treated me warmly. Even though I was just someone serving tea, I was increasingly drawn to Andrew's kindness. However, I couldn't express my feelings to him. I wrongly assumed that he probably didn't think of me in a romantic way. But after Andrew had been coming to the company for a while, he confessed his feelings for me. We started going out for dinner after work and spending weekends together, which marked the beginning of our relationship. 2 years later, we got married and embarked on our new life together. Because of marriage, I quit my job, and we searched for our dream home by visiting real estate agencies, eventually finding the perfect house. I was ecstatic at the thought of building a life with the man I love, Andrew. Yet, the life I ended up living was far from what I had imagined. About a month after our wedding, I began to sense a change in Andrew's demeanor. Andrew, welcome home. Oh, you're back quite early today. Well, just happened to be. Andrew wouldn't look at me, didn't greet me when he returned, and acted distant. His behavior was clearly different than usual, making me increasingly concerned. Hey, Andrew, are you feeling okay? You seem a bit worn out. Huh, oh, maybe. Indeed, Andrew seemed different than usual. He seemed irritable and exhausted, and his mind appeared to be elsewhere. I thought, well, Andrew must be just tired today, which might be causing this behavior, and didn't dwell on it too much. However, Andrew's behavior persisted, and he continued to act distant. He began to refuse the packed lunches I made and went straight to work without them. He started coming home late without notifying me. Clearly, his considerate attitude towards me had vanished. I worried if I had unknowingly done something to upset Andrew. With these thoughts, the unease wouldn't leave my mind, and the days seemed to fly by. This situation changed a few months after Andrew's attitude began to shift. One day, he suddenly began hurling harsh words at me. At dinner time, without eating, Andrew spoke to me. Hey, Catherine, do you even realize? Without any context, I couldn't understand what he meant. I asked Andrew to explain himself a bit more. Andrew confidently said, do you even know that the food you make tastes bad? What? The food is bad? Yes. So, you didn't know, huh? Every day, I'm forced to eat this awful food. Put yourself in my shoes. I was good at cooking, and when we were dating, Andrew always seemed to enjoy eating my dishes. He never complained and often said the food was delicious, so this was unexpected. But Andrew, you used to say it was delicious and you ate a lot. Really? Haha. Did I ever say that? Seeing the distressed look on my face, Andrew laughed heartily. After laughing for what felt like ages, he put down his chopsticks and went back to the bedroom. The meal remained untouched on the table. My feelings were a mixture of shock, confusion, and hurt. Why? Why is this happening? I managed to suppress my shaken feelings and repeated Andrew's words in my head, wondering if I had done something wrong. Could it be that my cooking was actually terrible all this while, and he was just hiding his feelings? Or had my cooking skills deteriorated, leading to tasteless meals? Such thoughts swirled in my mind, but I couldn't find a definitive answer. However, there was one reason I could think of that made sense to me: Andrew's indifferent attitude towards me and his unkind words. Perhaps he no longer loved me. Initially, I just thought he was being cold because he was a bit tired. But considering his recent behavior, he was clearly avoiding and being distant with me. The Andrew I knew before would tell me he was tired when he got home. But now, he doesn't even mention that, indicating his feelings for me have surely faded. If this is true, have I done something to make him dislike me? I thought hard and searched my memories, but nothing came to mind. Andrew's puzzling behavior made me increasingly troubled, and my doubts about him only grew. Life went on like this, and another 2 months passed. Andrew's attitude worsened, and the man I once knew when we started dating was nowhere to be seen. I was frequently berated by him, and an irritated Andrew made it obvious by loudly hitting objects. "Hey, Catherine, can't you even clean properly?" "What? Cleaning? The cleaning isn't done, right?" "Yes, that's right. The bathroom, its surroundings, the living room. It's all dirty. You haven't done anything, have you?" I always tried to keep the house clean and vacuumed daily. I cleaned the bathroom, the toilet, and used the vacuum every day. Yet, Andrew seemed unsatisfied. I couldn't figure out what would please him. "What? The cleaning isn't done? That can't be." I was devastated by Andrew's words, but his tirade continued without pause. The most painful part was when he said, "Why on earth did I marry such a worthless woman?" Once upon a time, Andrew would tell me he loved me every day. Was it all a lie? These thoughts crossed my mind, and tears started streaming down my face. "Hey, why are you crying? Please, enough with the fake tears." Before, Andrew would console me when I cried. But now, he could say such cruel things without hesitation. He looked down on me with a sneer and went to the bedroom. We used to sleep together in the bedroom when we first got married. But recently, I've been kicked out and have become accustomed to sleeping on the sofa. I felt neglected and ignored by Andrew, but I couldn't bring myself to consider divorce. Yes, I still believed in Andrew. But contrary to my hopes, his behavior worsened, and his outbursts became more intense. "Hey, Catherine, where's my dinner?" He would hurry me for meals. And when I prepared them, he'd shout, "What is this? You expect me to eat this garbage?" I suggested dining out several times, but for some reason, Andrew firmly refused. I couldn't figure out what was wrong when I asked him, as he would just dodge the question. But the moment he got home, he would complain about the cleanliness and rush me for meals daily. Ever since Andrew's behavior changed drastically, I've been wondering about the cause. But now, I believe he's simply using me as an outlet for his daily stress relief. considering the inconsistency in his actions and words and how he nitpicks and lashes out at me. It seems like the only plausible explanation. I understand that he's tired from work, but I wish he'd put himself in my shoes. I'm a human being too. Being subjected to his constant complaints and outbursts only builds up my stress. I hope that one day he'd come around, but I've reached my breaking point. Andrew, hey, can you just stop already? I've reached my limit. Finally, I made up my mind and spoke up to Andrew. Look, I understand work is tough and you're exhausted, but taking out that frustration on me has to stop. Do you think it's easy for me to just listen to your complaints every day? Hearing that, looking genuinely surprised, stared at me. What are you talking about? What do you mean, frustrated? Exactly what I said. Every day, when you come home from work, all you do is complain. I'm trying my best, you know? At first, Andrew listened to my words with a slight smirk, but when I finished speaking, his face turned beach red, and he became furious. What's gotten into you, acting all high and mighty? You need to know your place. Excuse me? Acting high and mighty? Exactly. Despite being a stay-at-home wife, you can't even clean or cook properly. How dare you complain? Just watching you live carelessly without reflecting on yourself infuriates me. Then tell me, Andrew, what am I doing wrong? If you point it out, I'll fix it. There's no point in telling you. Even if I did, I know you wouldn't change. If you care so much, figure it out yourself. Even when I bravely asked what was bothering him, Andrew just evaded the question. From this conversation alone, it was clear he saw me as nothing more than a target for his stress relief. With me voicing out my feelings, the rift between us grew even deeper. Andrew started hurling more abusive words at me and shouting even louder. Thinking about the happy and joyful days before our marriage, every day was filled with sadness and sighs. Then one day, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from my mother-in-law. Our relationship isn't bad, but we don't call each other often. I hurriedly answered the phone, not wanting to keep her waiting. Hello, it's Catherine. Hello, Catherine. It's been a while. How have you been? Mother-in-law's voice over the phone was as cheerful as always. After some small talk, she revealed the reason for her call. Wait, you're starting to do handmade crafts? Yes. Recently, I wanted to have a hobby. Then I remembered you were into handmade crafts. I was wondering if you could teach me a bit about it. I enjoyed doing handmade crafts as a hobby, spending time collecting materials and making things whenever my husband was not around. A long time ago, I mentioned this hobby to my mother-in-law. It was just a casual conversation topic back then, but I was delighted that she remembered. Of course, I'd be happy to help if you'd like. From then on, we started communicating more through video calls from our homes. Instead of regular calls, we opted for video calls. At first, we used only voice calls, but explaining things like the materials and demonstrating the crafting process became challenging with voice alone. So we switched to video calls. Although her place wasn't too far away, it was inconvenient to visit every time I needed to teach her something. So video calls were much more convenient. Every time we had a scheduled session, I would enter my room filled with crafting tools and proceed with the crafting process while chatting with her. Working on crafts while chatting with her felt refreshing, especially after dealing with my husband's unkind words and attitudes. By the way, Catherine, how have things been with your husband lately? Are you two getting along? Nah, well, yes, we're fine. That's good to hear. Please take care of him. I felt a bit perplexed, but decided to stay silent about my husband's true behavior. Above all, I didn't want to burden my mother-in-law with unnecessary worries. And during these pleasant moments with her, I wanted to forget about him. His turbulent attitude remained unchanged, even after I started the video calls with my mother-in-law, to ensure she never found out about his horrible behavior. I managed to hide and disguise it during our video calls. But then, one day, something I had feared finally happened. It was a Saturday, several weeks after I had started video calling with my mother-in-law. I had finished my chores as usual to make sure I was on time for our call when suddenly, the door to the room was thrown open. Andrew? Why? I turned around in surprise at the noise, and there stood Andrew, holding something in his hand. He seemed unaware of the video call and started walking towards me. Hey, Catherine, what are you sneaking around doing here? What about cleaning and laundry? What? What are you talking about? I've already finished. You saw me doing it, didn't you? I didn't see anything. Don't lie. Of course he didn't see. He had been lying on the living room couch, watching TV the whole time. Andrew, you were watching TV all the time. Maybe you didn't notice me doing the chores. What? Are you talking back to me? You're so annoying. Enraged by my words, Andrew yelled, "Get to cleaning the house now. I won't tolerate you slacking off like some slave." Then he splashed the liquid he was holding at me. I recognized the distinct smell immediately. It was beer. My body became sticky from the beer, and its overpowering smell filled my nose. Caught off guard by his actions, I was rendered speechless and motionless. Get it? If you understand, get moving. With that, he kicked a stack of books that had been piled nearby. The books went flying across the room, followed by Andrew's crude laughter echoing loudly. I couldn't muster any resistance. All I could do was stare at the books scattered on the beer-soaked floor. I clenched my teeth tightly, overwhelmed with frustration. Hey, Andrew, you're acting pretty tough, aren't you? Is that all you have to say? From the computer in front of me, a man's voice could be heard. What? Could it be? Dad? Yes. On the other side of the computer's video call was Andrew's father, my father-in-law. Hey, what the hell are you doing to Catherine? I saw everything, insulting her with harsh words and even throwing beer on her. When did you become such a despicable person? No, you've got it wrong. It's a misunderstanding, Dad. As soon as my father-in-law began to speak over the video call, Andrew's arrogant attitude vanished completely. Instead, he seemed genuinely frightened of his father. Nonetheless, my father-in-law gave him a relentless lecture, voicing his anger. Andrew, what's the misunderstanding? By the looks of it, today isn't the first time you've behaved like this, right? There's no misunderstanding at all, is there? Well, you see, hey, what are you trying to hide? Andrew, when did you become such a man? My father-in-law said, his voice filled with disbelief. I could understand his shock, realizing that his own son had repeatedly treated his wife with such verbal abuse and disrespect. Ignoring Andrew, who couldn't muster a response and looked completely flustered, my father-in-law kindly said to me, Catherine, I'm sorry about this. Would you like to come to our house now? Really? To your house? Right now? Yes. I'm concerned about leaving you with Andrew as he is. If you're okay with it, I can come pick you up right away. How does that sound? I was taken aback by his sudden offer, but upon reflection, I was apprehensive about what might happen if I continued to stay with Andrew. Are you sure it's okay, father-in-law? If it's all right with you, Catherine, then of course, I'll get ready and come pick you up. And James, if you dare lay a hand on Catherine before I get there, you won't be forgiven. After my father-in-law delivered his message to me and Andrew, he ended the video call. I quickly started preparing to head over to my in-laws' place. After packing up some belongings, I headed to the entrance to await my father-in-law's arrival. Andrew, meanwhile, observed my actions with a restless demeanor and said nothing the whole time. A short while later, my in-laws came to pick me up. I thanked them and headed straight to their home. When my father-in-law appeared at the entrance, Andrew had an unprecedented look of fear on his face. It was clear he was quite intimidated by his father. Hey, Andrew, reflect on how you've treated Catherine up to now. Think about it tonight, all right? Look, Dad, I'm sorry. Stop. You should be apologizing to Catherine. Not me. I don't want to hear any excuses. Reflect on your actions. My father-in-law, angered by Andrew's response, escorted me to the car parked outside. Although I had changed my clothes after being drenched with beer, I hadn't been able to shower, so my hair was still dripping wet. Seeing this, my father-in-law gently draped a bath towel over me, apologizing softly as he helped me into the car. A few minutes after departing, we arrived at my in-laws' home where my mother-in-law was waiting. Oh, Catherine, you're all soaked. Are you okay? Thank you, mother-in-law. I'm so sorry. She hugged me softly and said, "Come here," leading me towards the bathroom. Catherine, please take your time and have a bath. I'll leave towels and a change of clothes here for you. Thank you, mother-in-law. I'm really grateful. Amid the rapid turn of events, I was still in shock. After taking a bath and changing into the clothes prepared for me, I returned to the living room where my in-laws were. Thank you for the bath, father-in-law and mother-in-law. I feel so much better now. Oh my, Catherine, it's okay, don't worry about it. The sofa was occupied by my father-in-law, who had a serious expression, and my mother-in-law, who looked concerned about me. Encouraged by my mother-in-law, I took a seat on the sofa. Catherine, I'm sorry, but could you tell us about the things Andrew has been doing up to now? You mean about Andrew? Yes. Judging by what happened earlier, it's not the first time he's acted that way, is it? Yes, you're right, Catherine. Don't worry about us. Just be honest and tell us everything. I wondered where to begin. Unable to find the words immediately, I remained silent. After a few minutes, having collected my thoughts, I began to speak. I spoke about my life since marrying Andrew and why I hadn't consulted my in-laws before. They listened quietly and calmly to everything I said. That's why something like what happened earlier occurred. Oh dear. If only you had told us earlier without any hesitation. And I'm sorry, mother-in-law. I just didn't want to worry you. I understand how you feel, Catherine. But with someone like Andrew, if you let him get too confident, he doesn't know his limits. You're right, father-in-law. I'm sorry. Even though I was being cautioned, I realized that my in-laws were genuinely concerned about me. After that, a deep silence continued. They both seemed to be deep in thought. I wanted to ask what they were thinking, but the atmosphere was too heavy to do so. After a few minutes of this silence, Catherine, I need to ask you something. Even under these circumstances, do you still love Andrew? What? Why would you ask something like that? Well, I'm just thinking, given it's Andrew, he might end up repeating the same actions towards you. If that's the case, I thought maybe it's better for you two to get a divorce. My mother-in-law, sitting next to him, quietly nodded in agreement. I never imagined I'd consider divorcing Andrew, let alone having the idea suggested by his own parents. It's possible that life might be easier if I divorced Andrew. But would a divorce make him reconsider his ways? I had a faint hope for him, which is why, even under these circumstances, I couldn't make the decision to divorce. Still, my in-laws waited patiently, not pressing me for an answer. After a few minutes of deep thought, I came to a decision. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, I've decided to divorce Andrew. I firmly declared my decision to divorce. It's not that I didn't harbor any hope or trust for Andrew, but based on past experiences, it's unlikely his behavior will change if we continue our marriage. My in-laws looked visibly relieved at my decision. Later, after discussing with my in-laws, we decided I would propose the divorce to Andrew the next day. I was finally going to be free from Andrew. I had always hoped that Andrew would change, but now, having accepted that he might not, I was filled with deep emotion. The next day, accompanied by my in-laws, I went to Andrew's house with the divorce papers. As soon as I rang the doorbell, Andrew promptly came out. Catherine, welcome home. Wait, Dad, Mom, why are you here too? Seeing his parents with me, Andrew looked both shocked and disappointed. Given the incident from the previous day, one would expect him to realize that there was no way I would return alone. I entered the house and sat down on the sofa. My in-laws joined me, and we began discussing the divorce. Catherine, Andrew seemed at a loss for words, displaying neither an apologetic nor a definitive stance. As I watched his expression for a moment, I braced myself to convey my crucial decision. Andrew, I think we should get a divorce. What? Why? Why a divorce? And I've thought about it a lot, and I don't think we can be happy together anymore. If we continue like this, the same issues will just keep recurring, and maybe there's no future for us. No, Catherine, that's not true. Let's reconsider. Andrew, it's too late to say that now. I haven't even received an apology from you. Doesn't that mean you haven't truly reflected on your actions? Can you promise never to verbally abuse or treat me poorly again? Catherine, I'm sorry. After hearing my words, Andrew finally apologized, but I no longer had the option to forgive him. No matter how much you apologize, it's a waste of time. Please sign this divorce paper. I had the support of my in-laws. That's why I could express my feelings clearly to Andrew. Indeed, I did some terrible things, I think, but I never imagined it would lead to a divorce. What? You didn't think I'd divorce you? You really only think of yourself, don't you? Andrew could only hang his head in response to my words. Where had all his arrogance gone? After our exchange, Andrew reluctantly signed the divorce papers. In the end, I never heard a genuine apology from him, and our marriage ended without one. By the way, there was something I wanted to ask. While packing, a thought crossed my mind, so I asked John before leaving the house. Andrew, why did your attitude change so much as soon as we got married? You weren't like this at all when we were dating, right? Well, I just didn't want to be taken lightly. I mean, I didn't want to be seen as too soft or easygoing. What do you mean you didn't want to be taken lightly? Did I ever behave that way toward you when we were dating? No. I mean, you never did. Please, stop having such weird delusions. Seriously, thinking rationally, there's no way I ever behaved like that. I'm sorry. After that exchange, I left the home we had lived in during our marriage with my in-laws. I would probably never return to this house again. I really liked the house, so I regretted leaving behind it. After submitting the divorce papers, my in-laws graciously welcomed me into their home, and a new life began. Being a homemaker with no income, they told me I could live with them. At first, it was nerve-wracking, but now I've grown accustomed to living with them and even enjoy crafting time with my mother-in-law. Meanwhile, Andrew tried to contact me on my cell phone several times, but after my father-in-law told him to cut ties, the messages stopped. Maybe Andrew, who looked surprised, didn't know I was staying with my in-laws. The fact that he tried to secretly contact me after our divorce made me realize he still looked down on me. I feel relieved to have divorced such a self-centered, hopeless man. I am so grateful to my in-laws, who suggested the divorce from their own son. A year has passed since the divorce. I've started living on my own and found a part-time job, leading a fulfilling life. Although my in-laws said I could continue living with them, I felt it wasn't right to rely on them forever and decided to live independently. I still keep in touch with my in-laws, and they treat me like real family. We may not be related by blood, but to me, they are a true family, and I am filled with gratitude. My current goal is to express that gratitude tangibly. Every day, I think about what I can do to make them smile with happiness. Never forgetting my gratitude to them, I cherish my daily life.
Emily, did you get a good night's sleep? Yep, she had such a dopey sleeping face. There's no way she's waking up before tomorrow. Suddenly, I felt lightheaded. In the hotel lobby, clinging tightly to Michael's arm without a care, was Lisa. Emily, what do you want to do? In response to that question, I impulsively replied, I want to get back at those two. I surprised even myself by giving such a malicious answer. But Tom, on the other end of the phone, gave me a gentle smile. My name is Emily, and I'm 24 years old. I've been working at a local bank for 2 years since graduating from college. I've always been more reserved than others since I was a child, and often was told I'm stubborn. However, this personality was perfect for my job as a banker. I never disclose any secrets from our clients, no matter the situation. And actually, I didn't have many friends to talk about the detailed aspects of my job. Even when my family would ask me to share a little bit about it, I would always keep my mouth shut. After all, my relationship with my family was never that great to begin with. I was what you often call a latchkey kid, spending a lot of time alone from elementary school, in the evenings and nights. While it was partly because my parents worked late, my slightly cold demeanor often led people to wonder who I inherited it from. Both my father and mother have bright and friendly personalities. Perhaps that's why they didn't know how to deal with an introvert like me. So, I have no memories from my childhood of going out somewhere with my parents, or receiving a special gift. Typically, when I came home, there would be a $10 note left on the table, and it was normal for me to get by with that for a few days. This habit continued until I was a university student, and sometimes I experienced nights where I was so hungry I couldn't sleep. The people who genuinely worried about my situation and frequently invited me for dinner were Lisa's parents, who lived next door. Lisa's personality was the complete opposite of mine. She was bright and friendly. And every time my parents met her, they would say, "Oh, if only Sophie were our daughter." On the other hand, Lisa's parents seemed to understand that I was always alone, and they cared for me. Whenever they saw me looking lonely, they would invite me to their home. As a result, Sophie, who was in the same grade as me, naturally came into contact with me. However, even though we were technically friends, Lisa's attitude towards me was somewhat condescending. "Emily, you're being taken care of by my family, aren't you?" Lisa often said this because her father was the head of a major advertising company, implying she was a typical rich girl, which influenced her behavior. Lisa, flaunting her wealth, would often say to me behind her parents' back, "Emily's house is kind of poor, isn't it?" Also, when Lisa's family returned from trips, her parents, being considerate, would give me souvenir key holders, but in the end, Lisa would take them from me, making them all hers. Maybe Lisa doesn't really feel loved by her parents? I sometimes thought. Since I, too, lived a life where I didn't feel much attention or love from my family, I feel like I understand Lisa's feelings a bit. Indeed, Lisa's parents did love her deeply, but perhaps Sophie herself did not feel that way. Considering Lisa's feelings, I couldn't resist her words and actions very much. Some time passed, and one day, suddenly, there was talk of me getting married. It was an unexpected event even for myself. I didn't have a boyfriend per se, and the only man I was friendly with was Tom, a friend from high school. Tom and I had absolutely no romantic feelings for each other. We were just good friends. My marriage was arranged by my parents, who were worried about me, who couldn't get a boyfriend. One day, my mother suggested, "Why don't you have a matchmaking session with a child of my acquaintance?" I was taken aback at the moment. Even though I have little experience in romance, I'm still in the early 20s. The idea of having a matchmaking session seemed a bit too soon. When I expressed this feeling to my mother, she replied, "Emily, you're not the cute type and you're not popular, so having a love marriage will be difficult. You should be thankful for even having a matchmaking opportunity." My father chimed in, "Emily always looks grumpy, so it would be nice if our future grandchild is a cheerful kid." I felt lonely, as if I was the only one in a different world within my family. Nevertheless, I was sincerely doing my job, but I didn't think that it would increase my chances of marriage. Life is unpredictable, so I decided to give the matchmaking that my mother recommended a try. The man's name was Michael, a salaryman about 5 years older than me. He worked as a creator at an advertising company. Michael's sociable way of talking, his behavior, everything was precisely to the liking of my parents. Normally in matchmaking, there's a point where the parents leave so the two can talk freely. Although his parents left the table to give us privacy, my parents continued to chat with him cheerfully. "Armisa is not a charming girl, but we hope you'll consider her favorably," my father said. "Not at all, I think Amelia's a wonderful woman," Michael replied with a smile. Being complimented like this by a man was a first-time experience for me, and my heart was secretly pounding. However, even though we didn't get to have an in-depth conversation, just the two of us, the next thing I knew, our marriage was decided. Honestly, it felt like the marriage discussions progressed more among our parents than between us. But I was thinking positively that he and I could build a good relationship from here on out. Once we started our life together, I could feel Michael's extremely bright and positive personality, the total opposite of my own, and his powerful energy. His spending might be a bit bold, but he works hard in return, so I am reassured. Additionally, having grown up without feeling much affection, his kind attitude warmed my heart. "Hey, how about Hawaii for our honeymoon?" I had hardly ever left my hometown before, so I was a bit surprised by his suggestion. Indeed, Michael sometimes showed his forceful side, but I could always discover unexpected facets of him. Making every day fresh and our life together was enjoyable, though there were concerns. One of them was the existence of Lisa. Michael and I decided to start our new life not so far from my parents' house. But there was an unexpected development. Lisa, to my surprise, worked at the same company as Michael. Lisa served as the secretary to Michael's boss. We were in the same school year, but went to different universities, so I didn't know where she worked. Lisa seemed to have joined a company that her father manages. Later, Lisa started visiting our new home every now and then. I wonder what we three might talk about when together. Well, it's already decided. The two of them often talked about work, so I often moved to the kitchen to prepare meals while they chatted. I, who went to a different university and had become distant from Lisa, never thought that I would engage with her again in this way. However, I've grown up now. I'm no longer the girl who was controlled by Lisa as in the past. I thought Michael was just enjoying his time talking about work with Lisa. At that moment, I was swamped with bank work and couldn't spend enough time with Michael. So I silently approved of her frequent visits, thinking she might fill the gap. "Is the next snack ready, Emily?" Responding to Lisa's imperious words, I say almost. I, moving between the kitchen and the living room, had become accustomed to such situations. But for a moment, I secretly glance at Michael. Honestly, I wanted him to say something like, "Lisa, isn't that rude to my wife?" However, Michael, reaching for the snacks, expresses his thanks by saying, "This is delicious," and immediately continues to chat happily with Lisa. Our situation was such in the early days of our marriage, but we plan to go on a slightly belated honeymoon next week. If I can have time alone with Michael, we might get along better. My chest swelled with expectations, but I never thought that I would be betrayed. Our honeymoon in Hawaii was truly like a dream. The contrast between the clear blue sky and the sea was like a painting. I felt I could stare at it for hours without getting bored. In the midst of it, Michael enjoyed snorkeling and jet skiing in the sea. And I watched him from under the parasol, thinking, "Ah, that man is my husband," with a contented feeling. Certainly, spending time just the two of us helped deepen our relationship. We were able to enjoy delicious food together and have deep conversations in our hotel room. I was able to see unexpected sides of Michael and understand him more deeply. Indeed, there were differences in our thinking, but they were accepted as elements that enriched our relationship. However, a happening completely changed such a happy time. I never thought something like this would happen during our honeymoon. But it occurred on the third night. "Shall we go back for today?" Michael suggested, and we returned to the hotel a bit early. Usually, making tea was my role, but Michael said, "Leave it to me today," and made tea with the hotel's pot. Even though it was bagged tea, it was rare for him to make it, and I felt the deepening of our relationship. As I accepted the tea feeling such small happiness, I somehow noticed the taste was strange. With each sip, there definitely was an odd flavor. When I involuntarily peered into the cup, something white was settling at the bottom. I praised myself internally for not drinking it all. "Emily, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I answered, feigning to take a sip of tea while secretly pouring it down the sink in the bathroom, my mind filled with anxiety and surprise. A suspicion crossed my mind, wondering if Michael had put something in my drink. I hated to think such thoughts, but I couldn't ignore the reality in front of me. And as if to confirm that thought, I was assaulted by an intense drowsiness. However, not drinking all the tea turned out to be fortunate, as I did not lose consciousness entirely. Suddenly, my feelings of distrust toward Michael intensified, and I decided to pretend to sleep and observe his behavior. "Sorry, suddenly I feel so lethargic. I'm going to lie down. Good night." I surrendered myself quietly to the bed. After a little while, I heard Michael's footsteps approaching. He quietly approached my side, as if to check my breathing and movement. I continued to pretend to be asleep with all my might. Then, I sensed Michael moving. He walked quietly around the room, eventually moving towards the door, and went outside. I confirmed the fading of his footsteps and quickly rose from the bed. There probably was a sleeping pill in that tea. After Michael put me to sleep, he was clearly intending to do something. I didn't understand the intention or objective behind his action, but I intuited a high possibility that he was planning something bad. Then, a name suddenly surfaced in my mind, Lisa. I hadn't confirmed their relationship yet, but for some reason, her face came to mind. Whether there was a connection or it was just a misunderstanding, I didn't know yet. Sometimes, I sensed a peculiar tension and a special atmosphere between Michael and Lisa. I ignored it, thinking it was just my imagination, but a question was sprouting in the depths of my heart. It's a bit unbelievable that Lisa is also in Hawaii. But if that's the case, what on earth is Michael thinking? Confused, I hurried towards the lobby. When I asked the hotel staff about Michael's destination, I was told he took a taxi to another hotel. Please hurry. Are you okay, ma'am? Is there some kind of trouble? Despite my not answering, the taxi driver, perhaps sensing my haste, smoothly drove off. Thanks to that, we quickly reached the hotel. Please wait a bit, I'll be right back. The driver nodded, and I hurried to the hotel lobby. It was a bit more modest, but a more tranquil hotel than the one we were staying at. I'm later than Michael, but maybe he's still in the lobby. Anxiety raced through my mind when suddenly, I heard a voice. Hey Michael, I've been waiting. What were you doing? Sorry, I got a bit held up. Is Emily sound asleep? Yeah, she had such a dumb sleeping face. She'll definitely be out till tomorrow. A sudden shock coursed through me upon hearing their voices. There, in the hotel lobby, tightly clinging to Michael's arm without a care in the world, was Lisa. In a panic, I launched my phone's camera app and began to take pictures of the two. Astonishingly, they even shared a kiss right there, a moment which I also captured. I followed them quietly as they headed to the front desk. Then, I nonchalantly took a seat near the front, turning on my phone's voice recorder. Reservation for 2. Michael and Lisa, correct? Yes, that's right. Are you traveling as a couple? Yes, we are. How did it come to this? My phone recorded the conversation as I forced a bitter smile, feeling somewhat resigned. Lisa, what the hell? They're saying they're married. Michael is sweetly embracing Lisa by the shoulder. I firmly captured them, hand in hand, heading to their hotel room in a photo, then returned to the waiting taxi. The driver, seeing my tears, restarted the car without a word and took me back to my hotel. He must have noticed that something serious had happened from my tears. But these were not simply tears of sorrow. I had been constantly mocked by Lisa, and to add insult to injury, she took away everything I held dear. Even when I thought I was finally free from her, it's unbearable to see her trying to take my husband into her hands. Just recalling the image of Michael putting his arm around Lisa makes me feel sick. I have no feelings left for that man anymore. Even if my parents will be saddened by this, it has nothing to do with me now. I certainly plan to give them a piece of my mind. But what should be my first move? I returned to my hotel room and pondered for a while, but my mind is still in chaos, and I can't come up with anything. As my mind went blank, the vibration of my cell phone brought me back to reality. Looking at the screen, it was a message from Tom, my old friend. Enjoying the honeymoon? Receiving this message, my chest tightened further and tears welled up. Tom and I slowly built our friendship after being in the same committee during high school. While seeing Lisa's attitude led my friends to gradually distance themselves from me. Only Tom continued to interact with me unchanged, without minding the bad-mouthing and backbiting from Lisa. In college, we happened to spend time on the same campus, and our friendship deepened further. We experienced various things together and shared each other's troubles. Especially, I often couldn't confide in anyone but Tom about things related to Lisa. Receiving a message from him, I instinctively called, and the moment the call connected, I sought help, my voice trembling. What should I do? Are you okay? What happened? Did something happen with your husband? Tom, surprised by my sudden call, responded compassionately. His usual gentle voice made me feel reassured, and I began to detail everything that had happened. Tom listened quietly, seeming momentarily uncertain how to respond. I myself can barely believe the situation I'm currently experiencing. Lisa. I can't believe she'd go so far. Tom had always disliked Lisa's backbiting and spiteful comments, listening sympathetically whenever I spoke about them. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I'm shocked too. But this is the reality. What do you think I should do? Emily, what do you want to do? To that question, I impulsively answered, I want to get back at those two. I was even surprised at myself for responding so negatively. But Tomo gently laughed on the other end of the line. Actually, I was thinking the same thing. Can I help you out? How about coming back to America first? Once you've calmed down a bit, maybe decide what you want to do? Encouraged by his words, I nodded. As I started to pack, something unexpected appeared before me, Michael's wallet that he especially cherished. I remembered him saying that he separated his wallets into one for valuable items and another for everyday use during overseas trips. This was clearly the valuable wallet. Feeling a slight joy inside, I put the wallet in my bag. I also neatly organized his luggage. I'll call you again when I get back to America. With heartfelt gratitude for Tom's words, I said, thank you. Certainly, I'm not very sociable and am a bit stiff in my demeanor. But that's no reason to be treated so horribly. I will definitely make them regret this, I vowed to myself, quickly packed for the two of us, and left the hotel. After securing my suitcase with a lock, I, along with my carry-on, headed to the airport. I checked the suitcase at the airport's luggage facility and, taking only my bag, boarded the plane. During the flight, I checked an email from Tom. It read, given the situation, they probably won't be able to return for a few days. Take it easy once you arrive. Following his advice, I immediately fell into a deep sleep as soon as I got home. The next day, upon waking, I noticed a slew of missed calls from Michael. At first, I ignored them, but decided to answer when he called again. Emily, where are you? What are you thinking? Actually, I came back because I was worried. It seems like a friend got involved in a traffic accident. I wanted to contact you, but your mobile was unreachable. Why did you go back without saying anything? Where's my luggage? Having just you in a spacious and expensive room for two seemed a bit extravagant. Oh, I left your luggage securely at the airport's storage. I know. The airport contacted me. But there's no key to the carry case. I can't get to the passport and wallet inside. I didn't lock the carry. Maybe the zipper is broken? By the way, where were you that day? Your phone was unreachable all the time. My question seemed to unsettle Michael momentarily, which was to be expected. After all, I knew what he had been up to. I was out for a bit. I need to go to visit my friend in the hospital. I'm quite busy, so talk to you later. Wait a minute. Nevertheless, I ended the call. He would somehow manage to open the carry case. Though, there was no passport or wallet inside to begin with. While it may take some time, I was thinking that as long as I go through the proper procedures, reissue is possible, and there's no way I can't return to America. With that in mind, I decided to start preparing for the next step. And finally, the day came when Michael would return to America. However, when he entered the house, nothing was there. He contacted me immediately. "Why is there nothing in the house? Where are you now? Coming here?" "Actually, I'm back at my parents' home now." After conveying that, I hung up the phone. After a while, I heard a car engine from afar and recognized it as it parked in front of the house. Long time no see. When I led Michael into the living room, he followed me with an angry look. "What are you thinking? You hid the passport and wallet, didn't you? Let me explain what's happening." I grasped the doorknob and slowly opened the door. In the living room were Tom, my parents, Lisa and her parents, and, surprisingly, even Michael's parents. Everyone's expressions were varied and, notably, Michael's parents looked pallid, perhaps from shock and anxiety. What exactly is happening here?" "Oh, Michael? Hello there." Michael directed his gaze toward Tom. "Who are you?" To Michael's sullen question, Tom replied with a light smile, "Emily's classmate." Afterward, he handed a document to Michael. What is this?" Gradually, Michael's expression freezes. "You understand now, right? This is evidence that you were using other people's designs without permission. I was surprised when I touched your computer a little and so many popped out." Astonishingly, Michael had been secretly plagiarizing the designs of creators from another company. And Tom, an expert with computers, instantly cracked Michael's password and verified the content inside. Lisa's father, who is at the top of the company where Michael works, was very angry about his fraudulent activities. It's no wonder, because Michael's actions greatly damaged the company's credibility. To think that you would do such a thing and tarnish our company's name. Michael is surprised by those words and his face turns pale blue. I continued to spread more photos on the living room table. The photos showed Michael and Lisa meeting up in a hotel lobby, exchanging kisses, and entering a hotel room together. Lastly, I took out my cell phone and played back the conversation between Michael and Lisa from that day. Lisa came back home early, just to be safe, huh? Lisa's skin is clearly more tanned compared to a while ago. From her slightly brown skin, you could tell she had been enjoying a leisurely time on a southern island. She turned her face away with a sullen attitude as if she knew nothing. "Michael, why did you do such a thing?" Michael's father seems to have reached the limit of his patience, speaking with a trembling voice. Next to him, Michael's mother is staring at her son's face with an expression of surprise and disbelief, as if she were witnessing a nightmare. "Lisa, what is the meaning of this?" Now it was Lisa's mother who yelled at her daughter. On the other hand, Lisa, engrossed in her smartphone screen, ignoring the mood of the situation, finally seemed to notice our voices. However, there were no signs of remorse on her face. In fact, she wore a defiant look, as if she wanted to say, "What did I do wrong?" But it doesn't matter. It's Emily's fault for not being cool and for having a poor upbringing. Michael was the one who invited me. Why am I the only one getting scolded? What a disrespectful attitude. Honestly, I am utterly appalled by such a brazen demeanor. Amidst this, my parents joined the conversation. Both of them were calm, and they didn't seem particularly angry. Young people sometimes make careless mistakes, and Michael might be one of them. After all, Lisa is charming. She comes from a good family too. Yes, really. Emily is a bit unfriendly and lacks cuteness, so I can understand why his feelings might wander elsewhere. I couldn't believe that my own parents would say such things. However, at that moment, Tom stepped forward and threw words at my parents with a slightly stern tone. Hey, both of you, what do you think about Emily? There is no reason for her to be cheated on, is there? In such a heavy atmosphere, the next to speak were Lisa's parents. Lisa's father approached me, gently placed his hand on my shoulder, and looked at my parents. I usually have no intention of interfering in other families' matters, but I believe Emily is a very good person. As he says, no matter what the circumstances, cheating is never permissible. We appreciate your kind words about Lisa, but to think she'd set her sights on Emily's husband. We might have raised her poorly. Lisa's mother continued speaking, glancing slightly towards Lisa. Surrounded by the three of them, I felt tears welling up. At that moment, Michael's mother deeply bowed toward us with a sincere expression. Emily, I truly don't know how to apologize. Of course, we will proceed with the divorce and pay the property division you request. What, divorce, seriously? Property division too? Michael let out a surprised voice at those words. It seemed to be an unexpected development for him. I am not a saint who will just quietly accept the incident that happened during the honeymoon. Lisa, you will be involved in the money matters too. Why me too? I'm not involved, right? Lisa's voice became high-pitched. In response, Michael angrily said, Lisa, don't bail on this alone. The atmosphere in the room was incredibly tense. Eventually, Michael was made to fill out divorce papers by his parents, and a discussion schedule, involving a lawyer, was established. Naturally, Lisa will also participate in the discussion. As for me, I intend to claim a substantial amount in property division. Afterwards, it seems that Michael got into serious trouble at work. Not only was he fired from his company, but there were also rumors of lawsuits from other companies. As for Lisa, her relationship with Michael became known within the company, making her position as a secretary difficult, and eventually, she decided to quit. On the other hand, my life took an unexpected turn. Actually, I ended up marrying Tom. Due to the sudden turn of events, it was my second speed marriage. I really hadn't thought I'd get married again so quickly. Actually, I've liked you for a long time and always wished for your happiness, no matter who you were with. But, before you get caught up with another bad person, will you marry me? While I was initially surprised at Tom's proposal, I decided to accept. Even though my marriage with Brian was without a dating period, Tom has been a friend since high school and I know his personality well. I hadn't thought Tom harbored such feelings for me, but feeling my heart race during his confession, I was sure I could probably love him too. Thus, I made the decision to sever my relationships with my biological parents and Lisa. I had never received financial assistance from my parents, and due to their demeaning attitude towards me when times were tough, I had no regrets about cutting ties. On the other hand, Lisa's parents told me, our daughter may be terrible, but please rely on us like substitute parents if you want, and gave me warm words. Michael's parents are also very worried about me. They call me frequently as if to care for my heart, and I continue to have a good relationship with them. However, I'm completely done with seeing Michael and Lisa. By severing ties with my parents, and Michael and Lisa, I felt truly liberated. Looking toward a new future, I've come to believe that the upcoming days will surely be wonderful.